The wind off Half Moon Bay carried the faint scent of salt and cold luxury, the kind that clung to glass windows and marble floors. I remember stepping into the Ritz-Carlton lobby, my fingers still wrapped around the handle of my modest suitcase, feeling painfully out of place among the glittering couples and their Cartier bracelets. Brandon walked ahead of me, phone pressed to his ear, his Mont Blanc pen clipped neatly to his tailored jacket. Not once did he look back to see if I was keeping up. I should have known something was wrong the moment we arrived. The receptionist's polite smile wavered when she saw me. She clicked nervously through the reservation system, glanced at Brandon, then at me. "Certainly, Mrs. Morgan?" My married name rang with hesitation.
Then she asked the question that cracked the world beneath my feet. "Ma'am, may I confirm which number you are today?"
For a second, I thought I misheard her. My chest tightened. I'm sorry?" She lowered her voice, cheeks flushing.
"Mr. Hale typically lists numbers for his guests. We just need to know if you're number 4 or..." The pen in her hand trembled. I felt the marble floor tilt. Behind me, someone gasped. Beside me, a bellboy froze, eyes widening as if he'd just witnessed a crime. And 20 feet away, Brandon finally turned around, eyes sharp, jaw clenching, anger flashing like a warning. He knew. He knew exactly what numbers meant, because he created them. My throat closed, but I forced a breath. "Are you saying my husband brings women here so often, you've assigned them numbers?" The receptionist swallowed hard, looking everywhere but at me. "I'm so sorry, ma'am."
He assured us you wouldn't overlap.
The word overlap exploded inside my skull. Brandon stormed toward us, voice low and furious. But before he could speak, I heard the quiet voice of the man standing behind me, steady, unfamiliar, and hauntingly calm. "Lydia," he said, "you need to hear the rest." I didn't turn around immediately. My spine felt frozen, like my body needed a moment to understand what my mind couldn't yet process. The voice behind me, steady, low, unmistakably familiar, belonged to Evan Pierce. The last time I saw him was at a Manhattan tech conference 2 years ago, where he delivered a keynote speech about integrity in leadership. Ironically, he had been Brandon's mentor long before Brandon climbed into the world of Park Avenue sharks. Now, Evan stood just a few feet behind me in the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton, dressed in a charcoal suit that looked effortless on him.
He held a leather portfolio under his arm, the kind only men with impossible self-control carried. But his expression wasn't cold. It was concerned. Concerned for me, a woman he barely knew. "Lydia," he repeated, softer this time. "You shouldn't let him twist this." I swallowed hard. Twist what? The fact that my husband apparently has, an organized filing system for the women he cheats with? My voice cracked, but I didn't care. People were staring now, couples, staff members, even a concierge pretending to rearrange brochures just so she could listen. Brandon grabbed my wrist gently but firmly, a gesture disguised as affection while squeezing just enough to warn me. "You're making a scene," he muttered between clenched teeth. "We'll talk upstairs." His grip tightened. The part of me that spent years keeping the peace automatically wanted to obey, to avoid embarrassment. But another part of me, a part I didn't recognize yet, felt something break loose. Evan stepped forward slightly, voice even. "Brandon, let her go." Brandon laughed under his breath. "And you are? Oh, right. The hospitality tech guy. Still pretending you know more about my life than I do?" Evan didn't flinch. I know enough to recognize when a woman is being humiliated. Humiliated. The words sliced me open. Brandon finally released my wrist, but not before whispering, "If you ruin this trip, Lydia, I swear." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I'd heard enough threats coded in civility to fill a lifetime. Evan's gaze met mine again,
calm but unflinching. You deserve better than whatever this is. And in that moment, standing under a chandelier worth more than my yearly salary, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just embarrassed.
I was standing beside a man who never loved me, and another who saw straight through the lies. The elevator door slid open with a soft chime, revealing the luxury suite Brandon had booked, an oceanfront room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific. Sunlight spilled across the marble floors, catching the edges of polished glass, designer armchairs, and a chilled bottle of Veuve Clicquot waiting in an ice bucket. Everything in the suite screamed wealth, power, curated perfection. And somehow, I had never felt smaller. Brandon brushed past me, tossing his Rolex and keycard onto the table. The gesture was casual, practiced, like a man returning to a place he considered his territory. "Lydia, close the door," he said, voice tight, as though my existence itself had become an inconvenience. I stayed where I was. The scent of eucalyptus and sea air drifted in through the balcony door Brandon left open. A few years ago, I would have stood there mesmerized by the view, the crashing waves, the elegant serenity of a place most people could only dream of. But today I saw nothing beautiful, only the ghost of women who had stood here before me. Women with numbers. Numbers. The word pulsed in my skull like a heartbeat I didn't want. Brandon poured himself a glass of champagne, didn't offer me one. "You embarrassed me downstairs," he said, swirling the drink. "You know how these places are, staff gossip, misunderstandings." Misunderstandings? My voice came out thinner than I wanted. "They asked me which number I was, Brandon. Which number?" He turned, expression deliberately blank. "They got confused." "With what? Your numbering system?" His jaw flexed, a tiny twitch, the only crack in his polished mask. "That's enough," he said sharply. "I brought you here to have a nice weekend. Don't sabotage it with your paranoia." I laughed, an ugly, wounded sound I couldn't hold back. "Paranoia? You think I imagined the way the receptionist looked at me? The way the bellboy froze? Or Evan Pierce standing right there hearing everything?" The moment Evan's name left my lips, something in Brandon changed. His grip tightened around the glass. "You stay away from him," he snapped. "He's not your friend." "I don't think anyone in this room is my friend," I whispered. Silence tightened between us like a rope. Outside, a wave crashed against the cliffs, sharp, violent, impossible to ignore. For the first time in years, I let myself see the truth. This beautiful suite wasn't a romantic escape. It was a crime scene. And my marriage was the body on the floor. Brandon set the champagne glass down with a soft but dangerous click, the kind of sound that always preceded a lecture, or worse, a threat wrapped in calm. His reflection in the window looked sharper, colder, like the ocean behind him carved his silhouette out of stone. "You need to understand something, Lydia," he said, turning toward me with that rehearsed confidence he wore like a tailored suit. "Men at my level, we handle things differently. Privacy, discretion, appearances. You wouldn't understand." A familiar heat crawled up my chest, a mix of humiliation and the exhaustion of years spent trying to be what he wanted. "Try me." He scoffed lightly, stepping closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a great secret. "I have a reputation to manage. Investors, board members, people who expect a certain image. Sometimes." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I need flexibility." "Flexibility?" I repeated. "Is that what you call cheating now?" He didn't flinch, not even once. That hurt more than if he had screamed. "Don't be dramatic," he said. "The world we live in isn't built on fairy tales. You're emotional, sensitive. You overthink things that don't matter." "Numbers matter," I shot back. "Being your wife should matter." His eyes narrowed, irritation slicing through the mask. "You're making this bigger than it is. You were never meant to know about any of that. As if that made it better. As if ignorance was supposed to be my comfort. Brandon grabbed his phone from the table, thumbing through messages quickly. The screen lit up briefly, and I caught a glimpse. Sabrina. Her name bold and unmistakable. My stomach twisted. He noticed my stare. Don't, he warned. Don't start imagining things again. Imagining. As if the universe hadn't just handed me proof in the hotel lobby. My voice trembled, but I held my ground. Brandon, how many women have you brought here? His jaw tightened, just for a second, a tiny second, but enough. You're focusing on the wrong thing, he said. The wrong thing? I whispered. The staff thought I was number 4. Brandon's control finally cracked. Enough, Lydia. You're my wife. Act like it. I stepped back, breath shaking, not from fear, but from clarity. For the first time, I saw him without the expensive suit or the polished smile. I saw the truth. Brandon Hale wasn't a powerful man. He was a weak one, hiding inside a powerful world. And he was terrified I'd stop playing along. Brandon stormed past me and yanked open the balcony door, letting in a cold gust that carried the crash of distant waves. I need air, he muttered. But I knew better. He needed space to control the narrative in that calculating mind of his. I stood in the middle of the suite, heart still hammering from the confrontation downstairs. My fingers brushed the faint red mark on my wrist where he had gripped me earlier. It wasn't painful, but it was familiar. Too familiar. A knock at the door startled me. Before I could answer, a young bellboy, barely 20, peeked in nervously. His cheeks flushed when he saw me. "Ma'am, I'm really sorry about earlier," he blurted out. I blinked. "You don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything." He twisted his cap in his hands. "We were just following protocol for Mr. Hale's guests." His voice cracked on the last word, his guilt almost painful to witness. "Protocol," I repeated. He nodded, eyes darting toward the balcony where Brandon stood.
We're supposed to ask each guest which number they are, so we can make sure none of them overlap. That word again. A punch to the gut every time. How many have there been? I whispered. He swallowed hard. I can't say officially, ma'am, but I've seen at least 3 different women with him in the last few months. Sabrina was here the longest. Sabrina. Hearing her name from a stranger's mouth felt like a slap. The bellboy continued, voice shaking. We all assumed you knew. He always said you were busy or indifferent. Indifferent. The lie burned. Behind us, a couple passing in the hallway slowed down, whispering when they saw Brandon's name on the suite plaque. Suddenly, the humiliation wasn't private. It spread like wildfire, crawling through the cracked open door into the world outside. The bellboy lowered his gaze. I shouldn't have said anything. If Mr. Hale finds out, he won't, I said quickly. And thank you. He nodded and hurried away, leaving the door slightly ajar. Then I heard a voice from the hallway, female, sharp, and laced with cruelty. So the real wife finally showed up. I turned. Standing there, in a white sundress and sunglasses pushed up like a crown, was Sabrina Lowe. She smirked. I thought number 4 would look different. Her words sliced clean through the last piece of hope inside me. Brandon wasn't the only villain in this story. The moment Sabrina's smirk settled on her lips, something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, but quietly, like a thin thread giving way after years of strain. She stepped closer, her perfume a sickeningly sweet mix of jasmine and entitlement. You know, she said casually, Brandon said you wouldn't come. Said you preferred Manhattan.
Guess he lied about that, too.
My throat burned. Why are you here? She shrugged. Because he invited me. Because he needed someone who understood him. Someone who isn't boring. She dragged her eyes down my sweater, my plain jeans, clothes chosen for comfort, not performance.
You really showed up dressed like that, at a place like this?
My heart twisted, not because of her insult, those were nothing, but because Brandon had let her talk about me this way, encouraged it even. The humiliation hit hard, spreading through my chest like frost. Sabrina leaned her shoulder against the doorframe.
Relax. You were always temporary. The moment he made partner, everyone knew he'd trade up. Trade up. Like I was a car lease expiring. My vision blurred. Behind her, another couple slowed, blatantly listening, whispering behind their hands. I felt their pity like bruises.
Sabrina's voice dropped to a whisper.
He told me you two barely touch anymore. He said you couldn't give him what he wanted.
Her smile sharpened.
But I can.
For a moment, I genuinely couldn't breathe. I stumbled back into the room, my hand gripping the edge of the marble table just to stay upright. The weight of her words crushed something soft and fragile inside me. Brandon chose her. Brandon talked about me to her. Brandon brought her here over and over like I was the outsider. The door clicked softly as Sabrina walked away, humming. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my pulse ringing in my ears. Tears slipped down my cheeks, not loud sobs, but quiet ones, the kind that come from being worn down to the bone. The Pacific roared outside, relentless, vast, indifferent. My hands shook as I pressed them to my face. I had never felt so small, so invisible, so painfully replaceable.
But beneath the grief, a different feeling stirred. Thin, trembling but alive. Anger. Not the explosive kind, the cold, waking kind. The kind that meant this story wasn't over. The room felt too quiet after Sabrina's footsteps faded down the hallway. The ocean kept roaring outside, but inside, everything was painfully still. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, forcing myself to breathe, forcing myself not to disappear into the numbness settling over my bones. That's when a soft knock came at the door. I expected Brandon, or worse, Sabrina again. But when I opened it, Evan stood there, calm, composed, a faint concern in his eyes that made my chest ache in a way Brandon's anger never could. He held a sealed envelope in one hand and a hotel tablet in the other. "Lydia," he said gently, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let you face all that alone." I tried to straighten up. "I'm fine." "You're not," he said, "and you don't have to pretend with me." Something in his voice, steady, grounded, pulled the truth out of me. My knees buckled a little, and I had to grip the doorframe. Evan stepped forward instinctively, but he didn't touch me. He just waited. "Why are you here?" I finally asked. He held up the envelope. "Because you need to know what Brandon has been hiding. And because the resort flagged his name the moment you checked in." My heart lurched. Flagged? Why? Evan handed me the envelope. Inside were printed logs, time-stamped reservations showing Brandon's multiple visits. But not just with women. With corporate guests, many of whom were tied to questionable offshore deals. Deals that could ruin him. "Brandon isn't just cheating, Lydia," Evan said quietly. "He's involved in something darker, and he's been using this resort as a cover for months." I stared at the pages, my throat dry. "He thought bringing you here would make it look normal," Evan continued. "But the resort system automatically alerted me, because I own a large share of this property." I froze. "You own it?" "Part of it," Evan said with a faint sigh. "Enough to know who he brings here. Enough to know he never, ever planned to bring his wife." Cold clarity washed over me. Brandon hadn't made a mistake. He had brought me to his crime scene to hide his tracks. The humiliation wasn't the whole story. It was just the beginning. And for the first time I understood, I wasn't dealing with a cheating husband. I was dealing with a man whose entire life was a lie. For a long moment,
I just stood there with the pages trembling in my hands.
The walls of the suite felt like they were closing in, squeezing the last ounce of denial out of me. Brandon wasn't careless. He wasn't sloppy. Every humiliation, every lie, every absence, it was all part of something bigger, colder, and so calculated it made my skin crawl. "I should have seen this," I whispered. Evan shook his head. "People who love don't look for betrayal. They look for reasons to believe." The words hit me harder than they should have. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the documents spread across my lap. Offshore accounts, shell companies, meetings under false names, women listed as guests but registered under initials that didn't match their IDs. It was a blueprint of a double life, a life I'd never been part of. A shaky laugh escaped my throat. All this time, he kept telling me I wasn't ready to understand his world. Turns out his world is a sewer. Evan didn't smile. He studied me carefully, like he was waiting for something, maybe the moment I'd stop breaking and start rebuilding. And strangely, I felt it too. That shift, small but definite, like a flame flickering back to life. I wiped my cheeks, breathing deeper. "Okay," I said, voice steadier. "Okay. If he wants a world built on lies, fine. But I'm done living in it." Evan nodded slowly, respect flickering in his eyes. "Good, because you're going to need courage for what comes next." A chill ran up my spine. "What do you mean?" He handed me the hotel tablet. On the screen was security footage, Brandon and Sabrina entering the same suite. Laughing, touching, carefree. Time-stamped only 3 weeks earlier. And right beneath it was something worse. A second clip. Brandon handing a briefcase to a man whose face was blurred, exchanging a quiet handshake. The eerie kind of handshake people make when they know the law can't follow. My pulse thudded painfully. "He's involved with them?" "Yes," Evan said. "And now that you're here, he'll do anything to protect himself, including dragging you down with him." I felt my jaw tighten. For the first time, not from fear, but from resolve. "I won't go down," I whispered. "Not this time." Evan exhaled like he'd been waiting to hear those exact words. "That's what I needed to know," he said. "Because from this moment on, I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the problem Brandon never saw coming." By the time Brandon returned to the suite, the sun had begun to sink toward the horizon, painting the ocean in soft gold. It should have been beautiful, a romantic postcard scene, but all I saw was the reflection of a man I no longer recognized. He stepped inside, brushing off invisible dust from his sleeves, the picture of irritation. "I hope you've calmed down," he said. "We have a dinner reservation in an hour. Don't make this worse." But something in my posture must have been different, because he paused. Then he frowned. "What's that?" he asked, nodding toward the documents spread neatly across the table. I didn't answer. Instead, I turned the tablet toward him. Security footage frozen on the frame, showing him and Sabrina entering this very suite. His face drained of color before settling into a forced smirk. "So," he said casually, "you already knew about Sabrina." "Scroll," I said. He hesitated, then swiped. The next clip played. Brandon handing off the briefcase to the shadowy figure. The handshake, the exchange, the timestamp, the lie. He froze, and for the first time, I watched him scramble for words. "That," he swallowed hard. "Lydia, that isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I tilted my head. "Because it looks like you're laundering money with someone whose face needs to be blurred." Silence. A thick, dangerous silence. He took a step toward me. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter?" I replied. "Or are you just afraid it'll get out?" Anger flashed through his eyes, raw and panicked. "You don't understand what you've just seen."
You have no idea what kind of trouble you're bringing onto yourself. I think, I said quietly, you're the one drowning. Brandon slammed his hand onto the table, rattling the champagne glasses. Lydia, stop this. You're my wife. You're supposed to protect me. Protect him. There it was. The confession he didn't mean to make. I stepped closer, meeting his stare without flinching.
I protected you for years, but you weren't my husband. You were a storm pretending to be shelter. He blinked, shock flickering across his face. And now, I added, voice steady, I'm done being your umbrella.
The door behind him slid open. Evan stepped inside, calm but commanding. "Brandon," he said, "we need to talk." And for the first time in his life, Brandon Hale looked afraid. Brandon stiffened the second Evan walked in. His shoulders squared, his jaw locked, and for a moment he tried to slip back into the persona he wore so well, successful, untouchable, in control. But the tremor in his fingers betrayed him. "What the hell are you doing here?" Brandon snapped, voice cracking in a way he probably hoped neither of us noticed. Evan didn't respond immediately. He set his leather portfolio on the table, opened it calmly, and laid out a series of documents, financial reports, flagged transactions, and screenshots of encrypted messages Brandon had tried to delete. The color drained from my husband's face. "This," Evan said calmly, "is everything the resort flagged, and everything your offshore partners sent through our network without realizing I still monitor access logs." Brandon lunged forward and slammed the portfolio shut. "You have no right. This is illegal. This is—" "What you did," Evan interrupted, "is illegal. What I'm doing is cleaning up what you contaminated." Brandon's breath hitched, his anger spiraling into something desperate. "You're trying to ruin me. You've always been jealous. You hated that I surpassed you." Evan raised a brow. "Brandon, you didn't surpass anyone. You cut corners, lied, cheated, and dragged innocent people into your mess, including your wife." Brandon turned on me then, eyes wild. "Lydia, don't listen to him. He's manipulating you. He always hated us." "Us?" I repeated. "There was never an us, Brandon. Not really." He flinched. I stepped closer, feeling the shift inside myself, the transformation I never expected to feel. "Tell me something," I said softly. "Did you ever bring me here because you loved me? Or was I just another prop to make your life look clean?" He didn't answer. The silence was my answer. Outside the suite, voices began to gather, staff members, guests, people who'd heard raised voices. The door had been left open just a crack, enough for the tension to spill into the hallway like smoke. Evan turned to them. "You should all hear this," he said sharply. Brandon panicked. "Evan, don't." But it was too late. Evan tapped a button on the tablet.
The security footage played, right there in the doorway, for everyone to see. Brandon and Sabrina entering the suite. Brandon handing the briefcase to the shadowy man. Brandon's lies laid bare. Gasps filled the hallway. Whispers ignited like wildfire. Brandon staggered back, choking on his own downfall. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful. The hallway erupted into a frenzy. Whispered disbelief rippled like a wave through the corridor as guests craned their necks to get a better look at the footage looping on the tablet. Resort staff exchanged glances, awkward, guilty, almost relieved. They had known pieces of the truth, but now the full picture blazed in front of them. Brandon stumbled backward, one hand pressed against the wall as if trying to steady himself. "Turn it off," he hissed. "Evan, I'm warning you. Turn it off now." Evan didn't move. "You've warned everyone for years, Brandon, but you've never had real power, just entitlement." Brandon's face contorted. "I can ruin you, both of you." Evan let out a quiet laugh. "You already ruined yourself." I watched Brandon, this man I had once loved, collapse beneath the weight of his own arrogance.
His tailored suit suddenly looked too big on him. His expensive shoes couldn't anchor him. His Rolex might as well have been made of plastic. The performance was over, and the audience was unforgiving. A woman in a silk dress whispered loudly to her husband, "Isn't that the Hale Capital guy? The one who bragged at the gala last year?" Another man muttered, "Cheating is one thing, but this, he's finished." Brandon heard every word, shame carved into his features.
Then Sabrina appeared at the end of the hallway, sunglasses off now, fury burning in her eyes.
"What is going on?" she demanded.
A staff member pointed to the tablet still playing. Her face drained immediately. Someone in the crowd scoffed. "Oh, look, number 1. Sabrina stiffened.
"This is taken out of context. Brandon, say something."
Brandon didn't answer. He just stared at the floor, breathing hard, his world crumbling publicly. I stepped forward then, my voice steady.
"Context? You mean the part where you both lied to me? Or the part where the staff thought I was just another number?"
Sabrina's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Brandon finally lifted his head, eyes bloodshot, desperation leaking through.
"Lydia, please. You can't let this spread." "You handled that yourself," I said quietly. Evan gave a subtle nod. "Security is on their way. Brandon, the board has been notified.
You'll be escorted off the property." Gasps echoed. Brandon's knees nearly buckled. No, you can't do this. This resort can't. It can, Evan said. Because I own it. The crowd fell silent. And in that silence, Brandon Hale finally realized he wasn't the king of this world. He was just another man exposed by the truth. Security arrived within minutes, 2 men in dark uniforms, composed and professional. The moment they stepped into the hallway, Brandon's bravado evaporated completely. He straightened his jacket, wiped his face, and tried to smile as though he still belonged to this world. "Gentlemen," he said shakily, "there's been a misunderstanding. I'm a Diamond Elite member." "I know the manager," one of the guards cut him off. "Mr. Hale, you'll need to come with us. Your account has been flagged. Management will discuss the rest with you." The murmurs from the hallway grew louder. Brandon lunged toward me. "Lydia, say something. Tell them this is overblown." I took a step back. For the first time, I wasn't shrinking. I was protecting myself. "Brandon," I said evenly, "I didn't create this. You did." He froze, stunned that his old tricks no longer worked. Sabrina rushed to his side, hissing under her breath. "We can fix this. I can spin it. Just deny everything." Brandon shook his head, panic overtaking logic. "You don't understand. If the board gets those files, if they know about the accounts, they do," Evan said simply. "I sent the report an hour ago." Brandon's knees nearly buckled. You betrayed me." "No," Evan replied. "You betrayed everyone who trusted you." The guards took Brandon by the arms, not handcuffed, but firmly enough to remind him he was no longer in control. As they escorted him down the hallway, the crowd parted, judgment hanging in the air like smoke. Sabrina tried to follow, but the manager intercepted her. "Ms. Lowe, your room is no longer covered by Mr. Hale's account. You'll need to settle the balance immediately." Her face crumpled. "What? I don't have that kind of money on me." "That's unfortunate," the manager said coolly. "We'll need the room vacated within the hour." Sabrina spun toward me, eyes burning with blame. "This is your fault! You ruined everything!" "No," I said softly. "I just stopped covering your tracks." She stormed away, heels clacking sharply, dignity unraveling with every step. When the hallway finally cleared, Evan turned to me. "Are you okay?" I let out a long, trembling breath. "I don't know, but I feel something I haven't felt in years." "What's that?" he asked gently. "Like I'm finally breathing." Evan nodded. Good, because this is only the beginning. And for the first time, I believed him. After the chaos in the hallway finally died down, Evan guided me back into the suite. It felt different now, less like a gilded prison and more like a stage that had witnessed the moment my life cracked open. The ocean outside had turned deep blue, waves rolling in slow, steady rhythms, as if urging me to breathe again. I sank onto the sofa, exhausted, not physically, but in the way a person feels after carrying years of invisible weight. The humiliation, the betrayal, the fear. They all hovered around me like ghosts. But underneath that swirling pain was something new, something warm, something steady. Evan sat across from me, giving me space, but still close enough that I could feel his presence grounding me.
You handled yourself better than most would have, he said gently. I let out a shaky laugh. I felt like I was drowning. You didn't drown, Evan replied. You faced the truth head on. That takes strength. Strength, a foreign word, one I hadn't used to describe myself in years. I rubbed my palms together, staring at the documents spread across the coffee table. What happens now? I mean, with Brandon? Evan leaned back. There will be investigations. The board will suspend him, possibly remove him. And depending on what law enforcement uncovers, he may face charges. My breath caught, not from fear, but from the strange, conflicting relief washing through me. So it's over, I whispered. It's the beginning of the end for him, Evan corrected. But for you, it's the beginning of something new. I looked at him then, really looked at him. Calm, steady, kind.
Nothing like the chaos that had ruled my life for so long. Why are you helping me? I asked softly. Evan hesitated before answering. Because I know what it's like to be betrayed by someone you trusted. And because you deserved the truth. His honesty hit deeper than I expected. For a long while, we just sat in silence. My breathing evened out, my shoulders loosened. The suite no longer felt like a place where I'd lost everything, but a place where I'd reclaimed something vital. Myself. Finally, I stood, wiping dried tears from my cheeks. I don't know what comes next, I admitted, but I know I won't let him define it. Evan smiled, soft, warm, almost proud. That, he said, is the first real step forward. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't walking alone. After a few minutes of quiet, Evan stood and walked toward the balcony, pushing the door open just enough for the cool coastal air to sweep through the room. The breeze carried the salt from the Pacific, fresh and sharp, clearing the heavy fog that had settled in my chest. You shouldn't stay here tonight, he said without turning around. I blinked. I don't have anywhere else to go. He turned then, leaning one shoulder against the glass door. You're not staying in a room filled with his lies. His voice was calm, but there was a protective edge beneath it, something steady, unshakable. We'll arrange something better. The word we settled into me like warmth. But reality hit a second later. Evan, the finances. Every credit card is in his name. The joint account is basically a showpiece. I don't even know if I can afford an Uber back to Manhattan. This truth felt humiliating, raw, exposed, but I forced myself to say it out loud. Evan walked back toward me, slow and deliberate. Lydia, I've seen dozens of women in your exact situation. Men who weaponize money to keep them trapped. He stopped in front of me. But you're not trapped anymore. I lifted my gaze. How can you be so sure? Because, he said, you're finally asking the right questions. He sat opposite me at the small dining table and opened his portfolio again. Not with the sharpness he used on Brandon. This time, he moved gently, respectfully. I can help you get your own account. Freeze the joint one. File for immediate protective access if needed, and he slid a document toward me,
There's something else. I looked down. A job offer, director level, at his company. My breath caught.
This is too much, I whispered. It's fair, Evan said softly. You're brilliant, Lydia. I remember your presentation at the conference 2 years ago. You deserved better opportunities back then, and you still do now. Tears stung my eyes, but this time not from pain, from possibility.
Evan, why are you doing this? My voice cracked.
He held my gaze, steady as the tide outside. Because someone once did it for me when I thought I had nothing left. And because I believe you're meant for more than surviving Brandon Hale.
A long, trembling breath escaped my lips. Maybe for the first time in my adult life, someone saw me. Not as a wife, not as a burden, but as a future. That night, after Evan finalized the temporary arrangements with the front desk and ensured the suite was no longer charged under Brandon's account, I found myself standing alone on the balcony.
The ocean below glimmered like molten silver, moonlight slicing across the waves. For the first time in days, no, in years, the air felt clean when I inhaled it. I gripped the railing with both hands, the metal cold against my palms. Everything I thought I understood about my life had unraveled within hours. But instead of collapsing under the weight, I felt something rising inside me. A pulse, a spark, a quiet, fierce awakening. Behind me, the suite door clicked softly. I didn't turn, but I knew it was Evan. He walked over until he stood beside me, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on the horizon. "You're thinking a lot," he said gently. "I'm letting go," I answered. He studied me carefully. "Of him?" "Of everything," I whispered. "Of who I had to be just to survive him." Evan nodded once, as if this was exactly what he hoped to hear. "Good, because surviving is the bare minimum. You deserve to live." Live. The word hit me like a warm current. For years, I had shrunk myself, my voice, my desires, my ambitions, so Brandon wouldn't feel threatened. I walked on eggshells to protect his ego, knowing mine wasn't allowed to exist. But standing there under the moonlight, I realized something life-altering. I wasn't broken. I'd been suppressed. And now I was unfolding. I turned to Evan. "Do you think I can really do this? Start over?" "Lydia," he said, stepping closer. "You didn't break apart today. You broke open. There's a difference." My breath hitched. He continued, voice soft but unwavering. "You handled betrayal, public humiliation, and the truth about the man you married, and you're still standing. That's strength most people never discover." He was right. And the truth settled deep into my bones. I wasn't the same woman who checked into this resort. A quiet confidence wrapped around me, fragile but real. "Thank you," I murmured, "for being here, for helping me see myself again." Evan's expression softened. "I didn't help you see yourself. You just finally stopped looking at him." For the first time in a long time, I smiled. Not because someone needed me to, but because I finally knew. I was done being invisible. The next morning, sunlight poured through the curtains of the new suite Evan arranged for me. Neutral, peaceful, far away from the chaos Brandon left behind. For a moment, I lay still, letting the quiet settle over me like a balm. No footsteps pacing, no phone ringing with demands, no sharp voice criticizing every breath I took. Just silence. My silence. My space. But beneath the calm, a new clarity sharpened like a blade. This wasn't just about leaving Brandon. It was about reclaiming everything he had taken. I sat up, brushing the hair from my face, and reached for the hotel's notepad. For the first time in years, I wrote with purpose. Call an attorney. Freeze joint accounts. Close credit access.
gather documentation, protect myself. Seeing the list made my pulse steady, not anxious. Brandon had always relied on me being too overwhelmed, too emotional, too afraid. But today, I wasn't any of those things. A soft knock sounded at the door. I opened it to find Evan holding 2 coffees, one black, one with oat milk. He remembered. "Morning," he said, offering it to me. "Thank you." I took the cup, warmth spreading through my fingers. "I was just making a plan." "That's good," he said, stepping inside, "because the fallout from last night is already spreading." I raised a brow.
That fast? News moves quickly when powerful men crumble.
He set his tablet on the table and pulled up an article. The board suspended him pending investigation. And the press, well, they're circling. A strange mix of justice and sorrow twisted in my chest. I never wanted it to come to this. "No," Evan corrected gently. "You just stopped protecting his lies." I exhaled slowly. "What about the offshore accounts?" "We're gathering more evidence," he replied. "But you should be ready. Brandon will panic. He'll try to guilt you, intimidate you, manipulate you into helping him." He wasn't wrong. Brandon lived off control like oxygen. "So what do I do?" I asked. "You stay ahead of him," Evan said. "You build your case, your independence, your life." He paused, studying me with a quiet intensity. "And Lydia, you don't do it alone."
Not anymore. Something warm pressed against my ribs, an unfamiliar but welcome presence. Hope. Real this time. Not the fragile kind I used to beg for. I met his eyes. "Then let's start. Because this time, I wasn't going to survive him. I was going to surpass him." By the time afternoon sunlight washed across the suite, I had already spoken with an attorney, filed preliminary motions, and gathered years' worth of messages and emails documenting Brandon's manipulation. Evan helped organize everything into digital folders, each labeled with quiet precision. Finances, infidelity, misconduct, threats, witnesses. For the first time, I saw my marriage not as a tragedy, but as a case file, a pattern, a map of a downfall Brandon built with his own hands. "Your attorney will move quickly," Evan said, reviewing the last set of documents. But there's one more thing we need to prepare for.
I looked up from the table. "Brandon." Evan nodded. "He won't disappear quietly. Men like him don't crumble, they claw." Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Brandon Hale, 12 missed calls. Then a text came through. "Lydia, we need to talk. You don't understand the damage you've done. You're my wife. You owe me a conversation." My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with an old reflex. A reflex I was ready to break. I placed the phone face down. "No," I said. "I don't owe him anything." Evan watched me carefully. "Good, because he'll try to twist this as love, desperation disguised as devotion." "He doesn't know what devotion is," I said quietly. A knock sounded at the door, sharp, impatient. My breath hitched. Evan stepped closer, subtly positioning himself between me and the entrance. "Stay behind me." He opened the door. And there he was.
Brandon stood in the hallway, disheveled, his hair undone, his suit wrinkled like he'd been pacing for hours. His arrogance had drained away, replaced by frantic, shallow breaths.
"Lydia," he exhaled, trying to push past Evan. "Please, we need to fix this." Evan blocked the doorway with calm finality. "She's not speaking to you without her attorney present." Brandon's eyes darted between us, panic flickering. "Evan, move. This is between me and my wife." "No," I said, stepping forward. "It's between you and the consequences." He froze, shocked at my tone. "Lydia, don't do this. You can't survive without me."
I almost smiled. That's where you're wrong, I said. Because I already am. His expression faltered, collapsing into something small and terrified. And in that moment, the power shifted completely. Brandon Hale was no longer the man who controlled my life.
He was the man begging at my door. Brandon's eyes were wild, red-rimmed, restless, the eyes of a man watching his empire crumble grain by grain. He pushed a hand through his hair, pacing the hallway like a trapped animal.
Lydia, just stop. Think. We can fix this if you just stand by me.
I stepped fully into the doorway, no longer hiding behind Evan.
Fix?
Brandon, you weren't trying to fix a marriage. You were trying to fix your reputation.
That's not fair, he snapped. Everything I did for us. A bitter laugh escaped me. Which part? The numbered women? The offshore accounts? The lies? Or the part where you used my silence as your safety net? He flinched, jaw tightening. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. No, I said calmly. You don't understand the person I've become. His breath stuttered. Please, just talk to me alone. Evan crossed his arms.
Not happening.
Brandon whirled on him. You stay out of this. This is my wife. No, I said quietly. I'm not. His head snapped toward me. Don't say that. Don't you dare say that. I already filed, I replied. This morning. The words hit him like a physical blow. His shoulders collapsed inward. You filed? He whispered, voice cracking. Without even giving me a chance? A chance, I repeated. You had years of chances. His breath turned shaky. Lydia, listen. If you go through with this, everything falls apart. My position, my name, my future. I nodded. Yes, that's what happens when you build a future on deceit. His face twisted into desperation. You can't survive this. You don't have money. You don't have access. You don't even have a home without me. Evan stepped beside me. She has both, he said steadily. And she has representation
and support.
Brandon stared at him, stunned, then back at me.
You picked him over me?
I picked myself, I said. You were never on the list. He shook his head violently.
No, Lydia, you can't leave. You don't know what's coming. They'll come after me, and if they think you knew, I didn't, I cut in. And now they know I didn't. He staggered back, panic draining the last of his defiance. Please, don't do this. Don't abandon me. For years, those words would have broken me. Now, they only brought clarity. I'm not abandoning you, I said softly. I'm escaping you. Brandon Hale finally understood what losing truly felt like. The next morning, the world felt different. Not softer, not easier, but clearer. I stood by the window of the new suite Evan had arranged, watching the sun break across the cliffs of Half Moon Bay. Light spilled over the water like gold, melting into the waves.
For the first time in so long, the beauty didn't hurt to look at.
My phone buzzed with notifications, articles, statements from Hale Capital's board, messages from numbers I didn't recognize. But one notification stood out. Your emergency financial protection has been approved. It felt like breathing for the first time. Evan knocked lightly before entering. He carried 2 coffees again, and this time he smiled when he handed me mine, as if it was a quiet ritual between us now. Big day, he said. I nodded. I can feel it. We have a meeting with your attorney in an hour, he reminded me, and the board has officially frozen Brandon's access to company assets. A strange mix of justice and relief warmed my chest. How's he handling it? Evan exhaled. Not well, but that's not your problem anymore. He was right. For the first time, Brandon's unraveling wasn't my burden to carry.
I took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth spread through me.
Evan, thank you for everything. You don't have to thank me, he said softly. You did the hard part. I shook my head. No, the hardest part was admitting I deserved better. He studied me for a long moment, eyes warm, not pitying, but full of a quiet admiration I didn't know how to accept yet. You do, he said, more than you know. A gentle knock sounded at the door. A hotel staff member stood there with a small envelope. Ms. Morgan, this came for you. Inside was a handwritten note from Brandon. Please, come outside. Let me talk to you one last time. I let the note fall onto the table. Evan's voice was calm. You don't have to go. I know, I said, but I will. His brows lifted in surprise. Not for him, I clarified. For me. Because closure wasn't something Brandon deserved. It was something I had earned.
And I was ready to claim it. Brandon was waiting outside near the cliffside path that overlooked the ocean. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt. Nothing like the polished man who once demanded the world bend to him. For a moment, he looked small, human, breakable. Lydia, he said when I approached, his voice raw. Thank you for coming. I stopped a safe distance away. Say what you need to say. He exhaled shakily. I messed up. I know I did. But everything that's happening, the board, the investigation, the press, it's destroying me. Please, I need you. He stepped forward, desperation bleeding through every word. We can fix this, you and me. I just need you to stand by my side in public until this blows over. There it was. The truth behind his sudden devotion. Not love, not remorse. Survival. I won't lie for you, I said quietly. He swallowed hard. You owe me. No, I cut in. I don't owe you anything. His mouth opened, then closed. Anger flickered, then fear, then something hollow. Without you, I'm finished. I nodded once. Then you're finished. A long silence stretched between us, broken only by the wind roaring off the cliffs. Brandon's voice cracked. Was I really that terrible to you? I could have softened the truth, but lies were his language, not mine. Yes, I said simply. You destroyed us long before today. His face crumbled. He sat down heavily on the bench overlooking the water, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, I felt nothing. No longing, no guilt, no ache. Only release. I turned to walk back, and found Evan waiting a few steps behind, hands in his pockets, eyes warm with something I didn't yet dare name. You handled that with grace, he said softly. I handled it with truth, I replied. He nodded, stepping closer. What now? I breathed in the ocean air, filling my lungs with something that tasted like freedom. Now? I start over. On my terms. Evan's expression softened. You won't have to do it alone. For the first time, I let myself believe him. Maybe rebuilding my life wasn't just about escaping the past. Maybe it was about choosing a future. And as the sun broke through the clouds, warming my face, I realized something beautiful. Brandon was my ending. But I was only at my beginning. And just like that, our story comes to an end. But hey, my wonderful friends who are still here with me at this moment, you're still watching, still listening, still feeling something, aren't you? If you're here right now, it means this story touched your heart in a way you maybe didn't expect. And that matters. Because stories like this aren't just drama. They're reminders. You see, life will break us in places we never thought possible. People we love can disappoint us. Trust can shatter. But, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, what stands in the way becomes the way. The pain doesn't stop your journey.
Sometimes it becomes the path to who you're meant to be. And maybe, just maybe, like Lydia, you're realizing that healing doesn't always come in one big moment. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the decision to walk away, in the strength to start over, in the belief that you deserve better. If this story made you feel seen, understood, or even a little less alone, then share it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, because somewhere out there, someone else might need this reminder too. You are stronger than the people who tried to break you, and your beginning can start today. Thank you for staying with me. Truly, you matter.
This story is a fictional drama created purely for entertainment and emotional storytelling. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is completely coincidental. The characters, names, and situations were crafted to explore themes of courage, self-worth, and personal growth. While the emotions in the story may feel familiar or relatable, they are not based on actual events. Our goal is to inspire viewers, not to report real-life incidents. YouTube, please note, this content does not portray real individuals, real allegations, or factual claims. It is narrative fiction designed to engage and uplift the audience. By presenting the story in this way, we aim to create a safe, creative space where viewers can reflect, heal, and connect through storytelling, without promoting misinformation or harmful narratives.